6:04 p.m. We have no public comments for posted agenda items today. I will now turn the floor over to Dr. Robbie McGowan, Field Service Agenda Superintendent and School Board Training with Region 4, who will facilitate the Board of Trustees Team of 8 training.
All right. Hello, everybody. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Thank you for having me here. And even for those who aren't here and joining us by telephone, thank you for being here as well. We are doing your annual team building training today. Couple of quick logistical notes. I don't know if you noticed when Ms. Stevens did my introduction, but I actually have a different title from last time I was out here. John already knows Mr. Moore already knows the story about me, but I retired from my role as Deputy Executive Director last summer at Region 4, but I still get to, I'm working for them part-time and doing school board and superintendent training. So glad to be here, and it's always a pleasure to be here in Galena Park. So I appreciate you. The second logistical note is I'm going to pass around the sign-in sheet. If you'll just sign out to the left of your name, and then I'll collect that and take it back with me for our records. And then at the completion of our training, Elizabeth will have your certificates or record of training. You have a copy of the PowerPoint slides that are on the screen. That is the handout that says Galena Park ISD on the front there. That is simply a copy. It's exactly the same as on the screen. Sometimes people like to have a paper copy. Sometimes people like to look at the screen, so I just wanted you to have that. And then for a part of one of our activities we're going to do in the second part of our training today is related to your board operating procedures, so you actually have a copy of that as well at your place. So I'd like to start with a form of introductions. Well, no, actually, I take that back. Let me tell you what we're going to do today. We're going to start with welcome and introductions. The first half of our time is for you to have a conversation, and I'll help to guide that conversation about how do we define success in Galena Park ISD. I'm a firm believer that team building or team of 8 training should not only just meet the statutory requirement that you get the training, but it's really an opportunity for you to discuss some of the key issues facing your district because it's not in our normal board meeting. You don't have other action items that you're having to pay attention to. So I'm really wanting that conversation to be something that you are able to talk about. So in other words, when we get to that point of the conversation, if I'm doing more of the talking, then I'm probably not doing a good job as the teacher. So anyway, we want to have that conversation tonight and then, or this afternoon, and then we're going to have a conversation related to your board operating procedures. It's a healthy practice for boards to periodically check those, and so we're gonna do a little bit about that, and then we'll have some final reflections. So are there any questions about what's on our agenda for this afternoon? All right, so even though I've had an opportunity to meet each of you before, I do want us to kind of ground ourselves in doing some introductions. So I want us to go around the table, and I want you to share your name. How many years have you served this district? Either in your current role or in previous roles possibly. And then, do you have any grandchildren or grandchildren who are either currently or have gone through the district? And then the final thing I want you to share is I want you to share at least, or share one thing about the team of 8 or the school district for which you are grateful. Research actually shows that practicing gratitude can actually have not only does it help your mindset, it actually can be physiologically healthy for you. So look at it as we're doing our cardio this afternoon, and we're going to share some gratitude. So your name, how long you've been with the district, do you have currently or have had children or grandchildren go through the district, and then share one thing that you're grateful for, either about this team of 8 or about the school district. So do I have a volunteer who would like to go first?
I'll go first.
Okay.
Okay. My name is Noe Esparza, and I've served on the Galena Park ISD School Board for 4 years, starting my 5th year, I believe. And my entire family has actually come through the district, including myself. So I've been in the district for 51 of my 53 years, and I am a product of this district. So
Great.
entire family, including
Uh-huh.
both of my kids, have gone here.
Okay.
And one of the things that I'm grateful for about our board is how we all come together for the same one cause, and that's our kids. And I truly believe that everybody who's here is here for the right reasons, and that's our children. So I'm really grateful for that.
Okay, great. Thank you, and thanks for volunteering to go first, too. I appreciate it.
Well, I guess we'll just go this way. Then, yeah.
Okay, that'll be great. Thank you.
Well, I'm also, like Doy said, I also graduated from Galena Park ISD, went to school here all my life. So actually, I guess I'm grateful because the teachers from this district were the ones that showed me how to talk English, because when I went to school, I didn't speak English. So I was in the first bilingual class this district had
Oh, wow.
back in 73, 74.
74.
So, as well, my 3 girls have graduated from North Shore High School. My stepson goes to North Shore Middle School. My grandson goes to Cobb's 6th grade campus. And I just like, what I like about this district, that, you know, it's been a very diverse, I mean, when I first started, it was totally different than what it is now, and we've made a lot of changes, and I think we've made a lot of positive changes, and a lot of good kids, a lot of good, not just students, but now employees have come from this district. So I'm real proud to be part of this district.
Great, great. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And I've been on the board 13 years.
13. Okay, great.
Hi, Robbie again. My name is Linda Sherrod, and I too am a product of this district. Employed 38 years as an educator, 10 years as a retiree, and now 1 year almost as a board member. All 3 of my sons are products of Galena Park Independent School District. I have grandchildren, but none in this district. I have one that is not in anybody's district, and I have 2 that are in the Humble Independent School District.
Gotcha.
But attends everything that we have in Galena Park. Like the others, you know, I'm proud because when I see products of this district coming back and by choice choosing to live in the district and then serve, it makes you feel real good.
Yes.
It makes you feel real good. So, you know, when I look around, I tell them I'm almost to be your mama, so don't forget that when I look at these board members, some of them.
Right.
But with that being said, I'm just glad to be here.
Right.
And honored to work for this community and the children in the district.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, that's right. I remember meeting you when you went through your new member orientation, so it's been coming up on a year, right?
Yeah, coming up on a year, and I
Yeah.
won't be the rookie anymore.
Well, thank you for your service. I
Sure.
appreciate it. All right.
Well, hello, I'm Wanda Heath Johnson. I've been on the board for 18 years. I am a proud 1968 graduate of Galena Park ISD from Fidelity Manor High School, which no longer stands. I went through Galena Park. In fact, I'm one of 11 kids who graduated from Galena Park ISD. At the present, I do have 2 grandsons that I inherited the past year, and they are, you know, in the Galena Park district, and I am very proud of that. And what I like about Galena Park, well, I really like the superintendents that we've been having. They've been pretty good, and I have to say, John has been doing a good job. I like the fact that we work really hard as a team, and that's very important. And I like the fact that Galena Park offers so many different classes for the kids, not just academic, but they could do fine arts, which I'm a product of as well. And we just have so many things the kids could do in this district, and I love it.
Great, great. Thank you. Thank you for being here. Hi,
I'll
how
go,
are you?
and then
Welcome.
I'll let you kind of, so we're just introducing ourselves.
Yeah, the
So I'll-
questions
I'll
are up
go
on
and
the,
then-
yeah.
So my name is Adrienne Stevens. I think this is going into my 6th year. This is my second term. I have a husband that graduated from Galena Park, as well as my father-in-law taught here at Cobb Middle School. I also had my second daughter, went through elementary and middle school here. And what I'm proud of is I'm still on a high from this weekend. We attended the National School Board Conference, and we had 2 presenters that led a class on how we're retaining our teachers. And so the knowledge that Liz Layler had and everyone contributed, Dr. Sonia and Dr. Moore, and Dr. Wana, it was just amazing. And our class was filled to the top. We had a great attendance at our class, and so I'm just proud of the knowledge that we have here, and how they are always continuously a step above everyone else, in my opinion.
Great, and congratulations on being presenters at that
Yeah.
conference. That's great, that's awesome.
One of our own.
My name is Norma Hernandez. It's really Maria Norma Hernandez, but I go by Norma. I did not graduate from Galena Park ISD, but I taught at one school, Galena Park High School, for 38 years. Long time. I loved it the very first time I stepped foot in that high school, and then I never left. I had students like Noe, and maybe not Ramon, but he was there. And anyway, great kids. Galena Park High School has always had great kids. Of course, there's a few knuckleheads, but yeah. I do have 2 daughters who, can you hear me?
Oh, speak more into the mic.
Okay. I do have 2 daughters who graduated from Galena Park High School. They're both very successful, I feel. One of them is a news reporter, and the other one is a teacher.
Excellent.
Let's see, I have been on the Galena Park ISD Board of Trustees for 4 years, and in August it'll be 5 years. Let's see, things that I am very proud of at Galena Park is that we all have approved many things, and we have an excellent, clever team as far as the cabinet is concerned. We have great teachers, and like Adrienne said, they're a step ahead. They think of things. They for the better of the children, for the better of all of us. And yes, we presented this weekend, and I learned a lot. Other than just being a presenter, I learned a lot. And there are many things we're proud of. We've got a super team, a super superintendent, and I love working with this team. We have a great team of 8. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, appreciate
Mr.
it.
Sanchez, you want to go next?
Yes, my name is Herbert Sanchez, and I've been on the board since November of 2020. All of my kids have graduated from, one of them graduated from early college, and the other one is also graduated from early college. I have a 5-year-old, actually she's turning 6 years old in the next 2 weeks, who attends elementary school here in Galena Park ISD. One of the things that I'm grateful for is the way in which the school district direction is taking. We are considered an A-rated district, which is a great accomplishment for the district here. And I'm also grateful for all of our teachers and staff who on a daily basis work hard to keep our children safe and and teaching them what they need to be taught. So I'm grateful to be here, and good to see you guys at least on YouTube.
Well, thank you. Thank you for joining us, too. All right, Dr. Moore?
All right, so I'm John Moore. I'm completing year 32 in Galena Park, about to start 33. I have one more year. I've taught in a year in Louisiana before I came here, so I'm actually complete 33 total years in ed and going into 34. I have a couple of children. They both attended Galena Park for a portion of their school career. Their mother was an elementary principal here, and when they were in elementary school, they came with her. I have two grandchildren right now. One's not school age, and one is, and he doesn't go to school here, but I'm very proud of them. And I'm grateful for the people in Galena Park ISD. You know, the school business is about people. It's not about things, it's about people.
Yep.
And in today's times, most school districts have a lot of divisiveness going on. If you watch the news, and we've been able to keep our head down and stay focused on the right things and not let the wrong things trickle in to our day-to-day activities. And so out of everything we've accomplished, you know, we got good scores, we got good ball teams, we got great fine arts, but those are all symptoms of a great team. And that's our strongest point. And on our board, we have diverse opinions, but in the end, we're all headed in the same direction. And I hear my colleagues in other school districts, and I'm not sure that every other superintendent is as fortunate as I am. And so it all starts with this group of people. And the reality is this group of people makes the groups they were all talking about able to do what they do. If in a lot of school districts, the cabinet spends so much time dealing with the board that they can't deal with their job. And here, we don't have to do that. And so, therefore, when we have a couple of presenters out at something, they make us all look like geniuses. But I'm going to tell y'all something. You just saw one of 25 presentations that 25 different people can do, and you'd feel that way about every one of them. So, so when you ask what I'm grateful for the people.
Yeah. Great, thank you. Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. You mentioned, Dr. Moore, being in the people business. I mean, so education is a service industry. You know, we're not manufacturing. We're in the service industry. Service, the most precious resource of any service industry is people. So I appreciate you bringing that up. All right. Well, thank you. Thanks for helping us start. I think starting with gratitude is always helpful for me. I hope it's helpful for you. I'll start with gratitude as well. I want to thank you for your service on the board. I have never been a board member before. I was superintendent before joining the service center, and I've been doing board training now this is my 13th year. And it is a pleasure to work with school board members, but I've never sat in your chair. But I don't have to have sat in your chair to have great admiration for what it is that you do. I'm a former, my teaching background is at the high school. I taught and was an administrator and a principal at the high school level, but that doesn't mean I don't have great admiration for what those brave kindergarten teachers are doing. So even though I've not sat in your chair, I have great admiration for the work you do. I'll also echo, I'll just take a kind of point of privilege and echo something that Dr. Moore shared. You know, I think your reputation as a district in the region it is a good reputation, and it's a good reputation because of the team that you have here. Whether it's, I often call on Dr. Moore to come and help me with our Aspiring Superintendent Academy. I know your other leaders in the district interact with a lot of other leaders across the region and really the state, and it's because you're doing great things here. And then just to be very specific about gratitude, I'm grateful that you're here this afternoon and that you made a choice to be here. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, well, I didn't make a choice to be here. Elizabeth told me I had to be here today. But you made a choice. You made a choice to be present or to call in and to be whatever you had to do to be a part of this. So for that, I'm grateful. So thank you for that. So I want to start with our conversation around defining success. And so, you know, there are lots of ways that success can be defined. Certainly, the state of Texas has a defined accountability system. We refer to it as the A through F accountability system. And it's based upon a very few number of measurements. They're significant measurements, but the number of measurements, you know, it's based on if you remember back from your Senate Bill 1566 or your evaluating and improving student outcomes training, it's based primarily on STAR scores, college career military readiness, and graduation rate. So significant, yet that's not a huge number. There are lots of other measures of success. And even though the state does take it has the authority to create and implement an accountability system, the local Board of Trustees also has a responsibility. In fact, if you were to look at, there's a document called the Framework for School Board Development. It's approved by the State Board of Education. Some of you are familiar with that document. There is literally an entire section. It's created of 6 pillars, basically, and one of them is vision and values. And you have not only a responsibility, you actually have a requirement, a legal requirement. You reflect the vision and the values of your community. And in reflecting that, part of that job is to reflect how do we measure success? All of you talked about children, you know, your children or grandchildren or other children you know who have gone through this district, right? And it's easy to relate when we're thinking about people who we have a personal relationship with, right? But you have all of the other kiddos. How many? What's the about ballpark number of kiddos now?
21,400 or so.
Yeah, so almost 22,000, you know, students for whom you're responsible and for whom you're creating a legacy. So, Ms. Hernandez, just like you use the example of Mr. Esparza being one of your students, but you're a part of his legacy, right? And so it's not just the 21,400 who are in school today, but it's going to be those kids that haven't even come through yet, and you set that. I'll make I'll give some editorial comments here. These are, I'm in no way speaking, you know, on behalf of the state. I don't work for, you know, the state. I work for the Education Service Center. But, you know, you don't have a choice in terms of the state accountability system, right? But you do have a choice in other ways that you can measure success. And I think it's more important today than at any other time. We talked about how many years, you know, 33 years, 38 years, 38 years, you know, the years that we've been doing this a while. I'm in that almost at the end of my 4th decade too. And I don't think at any other time, at least in my career, has it been more important that local communities hold on to their duty and responsibility to say, hey, we also have a say in how we define success. And quite honestly, it's real. I mean, I'll just talk specifically about right now. I mean, we are in a year, this is a unique school year. It's not necessarily unique that we're having a school year in the middle of a legislative session. We do that every other year. However, we are in a time, we're in a middle of a legislative session where there are a lot of key issues facing public education. We also are in a year where our students here in a matter of days will be taking an assessment that's going to look very different than assessments that students have taken in the past. A lot of work has been done on that. A lot of educators were given opportunity to have feedback into that. However, regardless, it's going to be something new. And in that same year, it appears that the A through F system has actually been around for 5 years. We're entering the 6th year. And when it was first put into place, one of the stipulations that was provided was that we're not going to do anything to it for 5 years. Well, we're at the end of that 5 years now, and the plans are already in place for raising the bar. I think and I know we've been in meetings, I've been in meetings that Dr. Moore's been a part of with other district leaders, where, it's a very real possibility that somebody shared in your point of pride about your district's rating. There's a very real possibility that your actually raw data may be higher, so college, career, military readiness, all right? But the rating may not.
That's correct.
Right, may go down, and so.
So in other words, we can do better and have a C. So.
Right.
Just be prepared.
And of course, we could, I don't know that, today, there's no one around this table that's necessarily going to change that. So, my advice to school boards, my advice to superintendents, my advice to just about anybody, in fact, my advice to myself, I have to remind myself about this a lot, is what is it that I have control over? What is it that I can control? Dr. Moore mentioned your people being your strength, and several of you mentioned that in your answers of gratitude. What happens in the boardroom impacts the classroom. Now, that is not always easy to remember. I think about my career, and Dr. Moore, I don't know if you can relate to this as well, but as I've moved from the classroom teacher into leadership, there were times when I wondered, am I having as much impact in the classroom? And then imagine then, like I said, I've never sat in your chair as an elected board member, but imagine, some of you have been a classroom teacher before, right? And now you're a board member, and my guess is you probably have to wonder sometimes, is what I do around this table matter? Interestingly, the research says yes, it does. There's actually research. It's a somewhat newer body of research, but there's been research out about 15 years that shows that what happens in this boardroom impacts the classroom. So what I'd like for us to have a conversation about today is what are ways other than the state accountability system that we define success? And then, we'll talk about this later, how do we as a board, how are our actions reflecting that those things are important to us? All right? So those are two different things. I want to take those one step at a time. So you have a notepad there if you want to take some notes, or you've got some sticky notes there. What I want you to do individually for a couple of minutes is other than the elements of the state accountability system. So I'm talking about things other than the STAR test, other than college and career military readiness, and other than graduation rates. Other than those things, what are measures of students or of just success in general, but especially student success in Galena Park ISD? Spend about 3 or 4 minutes just on your own, just making a list. once you feel like you have your list down, if you'll just lay your writing utensil down so I'll know that you're ready to move on. All right. Trustee Sanchez, can you hear me okay? Also, I wanted to just check.
Yes.
Okay, great.
I can hear you now.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. I just want to check in periodically to make sure. All right. So what I would like to do is I'd like us. We're going to go around the table. Trustee Stevens, we'll start with you.
Okay.
And if you'll just share one, and if someone shares something you already have on your list, if you'll just kind of check it off, and we'll just go around until we've exhausted the list. So, Trustee Stevens, what was a measure of success you had?
Sure. So I think if we are able to measure success beyond the actual student, so if there's an impact on the community, I think that is a good measurement of success. So, for example, the clinics that are on campuses that are making it easier for parents and families to take care of their students or their family, both physical as well as mental.
Excellent, excellent. All right, thank you. Thank you for sharing that. Trustee Hernandez?
Well, I feel that when we approve policies or when we approve the buildings of or construction of new campuses, of whatever facility it may be, I feel that we're showing our students that we care. We're showing the community that we care and that we want them to learn in a good, clean, beautiful environment, if you will. And I feel that that will in turn increase their measurements, their study habits, their test taking.
Yeah, great. Yeah, the learning environment is key. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. Trustee Johnson?
Well, I put community support, because I think, dealing with the parents and even the teachers, we work as a village, for the betterment of every child. So I think with the community support is very important, and I think that's something that's absent from the state system.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Trustee Sanchez?
Yes, so the question is, what is missing from the HOF rating system?
Yes, what would be another?
Yeah, well, one of the things that two things is, one of them being equity, where, how well are students that come from lower income families, how are they comparing to, students who live in a higher income community? That's one of the things that is missing from there, as well as social and emotional learning. Those are things that are not taken into consideration. How are these kids developing their social and emotional skills? I think that's super important to gauge so that we can understand how they're doing. The rates of attendance, disciplinary actions, those are gauges as to how well a student is conducting themselves within the school system.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you. Thank you for sharing those. Trustee Sherrod?
Okay. I think I took it at a step different.
Okay.
Because measures of success in Galena Park ISD, I looked at where we are, what we have, and where we're going. And I looked at the programs that were already in place. When the state has said A is measured or B, C, D, or F on the state accountability system, But first, you got to get the child here to be a part of the system.
Okay.
So I looked at what we had in place, programs and procedures, and I just took off from there.
Okay.
You know, I thought about the fact that we have now a daycare for employees in our district.
Okay.
So that the parent don't have to worry about the child if they live across town or something like that. We have something for everybody in Galena Park ISD. We do the dropout program. We have the early college program. Those are the things that I looked at that you can measure success on. We have a military exposure for our children. We have academies for those who choose to go into the leadership role, for counselors.
Okay.
Yeah, so those programs, I heard a couple of different examples there, resources for employees like the daycare, but also, some of those other programs. I heard you say that, we can't be successful with students unless they're here, right? So those, like dropout recovery and, so great. Hang on to those others, then we'll make another round through. Thank you. Trustee Garza?
Well, one of my things I put, all our extracurricular activities that the students are part of, like band, choir, cheer, sports, that is, when we have all those different students coming up here getting recognized locally, state, national awards that they're receiving, that I think to me that measures a lot of success. And also, it just makes me real proud that we've gone to other school districts, or when we're playing other basketball games or other football games, and you see how big our crowd is, and you see how big our band is, and you see how big all our groups are, and sometimes you look across the field and they don't have a band, or there's 5 cheerleaders or 6 cheerleaders, and we have. I think that also measures success. That when you're successful, all your students want to be part of it, and when you're not successful, I think that maybe shows on the opposite side of the sidelines. That's just you want to go to games because you're like we have a good band, we have a good cheer, we have a good drill team, we have a good football team, we have we're real competitive. So I think that the kids themselves make it more competitive and want to be part of the success.
Right. Very good. All right, thank you. Thanks for those examples.
I wrote down that we hire and retain the absolute best quality teachers that we can get. Because for me, I think, it starts obviously with our teachers, and having the absolute best teachers that we could get is going to help us get the outcomes that we desire, the positive outcomes that we desire. I don't think we get enough credit for that from the state, right? I mean, just these past several years, seeing how difficult it's been to not only get new teachers but retain teachers it's incredible what goes into that, and I think that's an absolute measure of success, and I think it starts there. If we can't keep quality teachers and we can't hire quality teachers, and I think our students don't benefit from that. So
Right.
I think that's a big part of that's something that's missing from state requirements, and we don't get credit for that.
Gotcha. Yeah, well, and it sounds like you have something good going on. You even were asked to present at a national conference about it, so yeah. Dr. Moore, what was another measure of success you'd recommend?
So, these guys hear all the buzzwords, but there's a lot of things that go on in Galena Park you guys don't hear about. So I'm going to talk about one of those. We've really been focusing hard on saving energy here in Galena Park because there's, it's a huge bill. So it's a way to carve out extra money for an extra 0.5% raise or an extra set of field trips or something. And, every year we get a check in here from Centerpoint because we've done a good job at that. That also spins into something that's already been previously talked about with facilities. Part of the rebates we get back have to do with the choices we make on facilities and what type of energy forecast is going to be used in a new campus. So CenterPoint also gives you a bunch of credits for that. So, and of course, that kind of stuff isn't anywhere on anything. And when you talk about keeping the community happy and trying to keep our tax rate in order, that's a big deal. And now that, I can give you all the education things too. I just
Right,
was going
no,
to give
right.
something, I was trying not to take something off their list.
Yeah.
So, and it's a big deal.
Yeah, yeah, those are big, yeah. Well, I like the way you, it's like you translated it into, well, if we save money on this, like energy savings, it could be a resource spent on kids, or it could be a 0.5% raise, which goes to what Trustee Esparza just talked about the retention. So, see, these things are very interconnected. All right, let's make another round and see if there's something on your list you haven't mentioned yet. So, Trustee Stevens?
So I just want to make sure that I'm thinking about this correctly. So your question was, what defines success in Galena Park ISD that is not defined by the accountability system?
Right.
Okay, perfect. So if I'm not mistaken, safety.
Okay. Yeah.
So making sure that the students, the staff, teachers, administrators, anyone, and the students are safe when they come to school and they feel safe. Of course, we know what people go through. It's hard enough to send your child to school and under someone's care, so we want to make sure that our students are safe.
Right, exactly. Yeah, that's an important, we say a measure of success. I would also say it's probably an expectation,
Yeah.
My children are grown and out of the house now, but, even as a parent, my expectation was when one of our 4 boys went off to school, that the school was doing everything within their power to try to keep kids safe. So, yeah, that's definitely a measure of success.
Right, so, deputies at every school, vestibules,
Right.
everything that we can have, I think that we are measuring up to that.
Great, thank you. Anything that hadn't been mentioned yet, Trustee Hernandez?
Well, maybe. I think
Okay.
it's close to Adrian's, but I think mine is more visibility. I think that when we visit campuses, when Dr. Moore goes to campus, when any of us go to campuses, we're encouraging. We're encouraging the kids, the teachers, the staff, and I think that plays an important part in how they perceive us.
Gotcha.
I believe that being visible is I don't know, I think it's great. I think
Yeah.
it's something that we need to do. And that in turn, I believe it affects what they do.
Gotcha.
Can I say
Yes.
something? I'm glad you brought that up because me being in high school, I don't remember anyone past the principal, and a board of trustees, what is that?
Right, yeah.
So, and now I'm on the board, but I think that's a great point. Us always being visible is extremely important, and I think that kids need to see people that look like me, look like you, leading or making decisions for this district.
Yeah, the visibility of leadership is critical. All right.
Well, I think Ramon touched on this a little bit, because I was looking at success or absence from the state's system. I don't think we do enough as far as testing kids when it comes to the fine arts.
Okay.
I know they do the academics, the biology and all of that, but every kid is not going to make it academically. And you will find some of these kids who aren't good academically. They are very good when it comes to the fine arts, whether it's art, culinary, whether it's drama or literature. You'll find that some of those kids are really good, and they may not do as well as some kids would do
Right.
on a state test. So I think that's really absent from the state's accountability.
Great, yeah, yeah. Fine arts success definitely is something that I imagine is important to your community. Thank you. Okay, Trustee Sanchez, did you have something else on your list that we haven't covered yet?
I think they pretty much hit the nail on the head.
Okay.
And one of the other things that I was also thinking was like partnerships with higher quality education organizations, such as, Rice University, Baylor College of Medicine. Are we bringing those organizations to our district to offer to our children? For example, other, higher income school districts, they bring these organizations into their school districts, and I think that's one of the things that is not taken into consideration within that rating system.
Gotcha. Yeah, great. Yeah, those partnerships are very critical. Thank you. Trustee Shar, did you have anything else on your list that we haven't hit yet?
Just a key word, and that's homegrown. I think that's critical
Okay.
for our young people to see that there are opportunities in Galena Park ISD. If you stay here or you come back here,
okay.
giving them an opportunity to, it goes with retention, it goes with keeping teachers, with everything. But
Yeah.
I think homegrown, that's probably a critical thing that we do here to get our kids to understand that we've got stuff going on the east side, and we really do.
Right.
Got
right.
great stuff going on.
Yeah,
But to know that you can come back here and you can teach, you can be an administrator, you can be whatever you want to be.
that whole grow your own approach is a critical part. Again, we're talking about connections, like
Yeah.
what we heard earlier about retention
Right.
and that. Yeah, they tie together. Thank you. Thanks for bringing that up.
And let me say this, when Ramon was saying about he was in the first bilingual group, see, I got excited because that's when I started teaching.
Oh, was it really?
Yes,
Yeah, I
and-
heard you say you mentioned the year because you remembered.
I
Yeah.
got excited because that's how far we have come in Galena Park ISD.
Yep.
And
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Trustee Garza, anything else you haven't mentioned yet on your list?
I think our parent involvement, kind of maybe touch that a little bit, but I mean, our parent involvement, every time I go to elementary or every time I go to middle school, whether it be, there is so many parents there with their kids. I mean, it's just amazing how many parents, and it touched me one time because I went to an elementary that I go to a lot. My daughters went there, my grandson went there, North Shore Elementary, and just how many people, how many parents, even if they don't speak English, they are still there helping, involved. It's just, Galena Park's another one. Pyburn's another one that I've gone to, and I see how many parents, even if the parents doesn't speak English, they're still involved there with their kids, or they're hanging around with somebody that's translating to them. That just, that just goes to show, when the parents are involved, then we know we're gonna have good kids.
Right.
If the parents are involved, because it all starts at home, and that's just, I'm glad to see that, because I know my mom was the same way with us, so I'm glad that that, and that's something that, you can't measure,
Right.
But parent involvement, and it makes a big difference on
It
our
does.
kids,
Yep.
and I'm glad that our parents, for the most part, are involved.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. Trustee Esparza, anything else on your list?
First, Miss Linda stole my thunder, and then Ramon stole my thunder.
That's
I was
great
just gonna
minds
say
think alike.
Those exact same things.
Yeah.
And the homegrown program for me is, I think, a fantastic measure of the success that we have in our district. Because, having kids who go through this district and then come back to teach in this district it's an amazing accomplishment and a testament to the good work and the hard work that our staff, teachers do on a daily basis. So for me, that's a measurement that I think gets overlooked a lot. So, I was really happy to hear Linda say the homegrown program, because that's one that I think is really, really important and gets a lot of, doesn't get a lot of as much attention as I think it deserves. I mean, we get reports, every so often on how many kids, how many hires we get it's thrilling to see, you know, Galena Park ISD or North Shore, or, you know, wherever school they came from, whichever side of our district they came from. But it's amazing to see when they come back and teach. So that's a good measure, I think, of our success.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you. Dr. Moore, anything else to add?
Sure.
Yeah, go ahead.
So I believe Galena Park has made a change in something about 5 years ago. It kind of started, and I think since COVID, we've really taken off. And that's the way we communicate with our community and use video messaging. So when COVID started, you know, I was starting, and people had lots of questions, and there was actually fear. We were dealing with fear. And when you deal with fear, you get sometimes you don't get a nice response when people are fearful. And so, you know, we bolstered up our video team, and we do a ton of video messaging. I do some of it, and then lots of other people participate in it. And I really believe it's put our community at ease, that we have no secrets, and we're going to be straight up, and we're going to tell you all the good, the bad, the ugly. And so that department has grown some, and it's a tough place to work because of the expectations, because, you know, you can't mess that up. You can't have a misspelled word. You can't have something run on the wrong day, so it's tough. But I really do think, and it's not just the communications department that does it. They're kind of the keeper of it. But all of our departments are participating in that. And I really think it's the wave of the future. I hate to say this, but, you know, people just don't read like they used to. And, you know, you can send letter after letter after letter, and you don't always get great participation. But, boy, when you send out a video, people watch that. So I think we've done really well at that, and I don't know how they would use that to rate us, but it's a big plus for Galena Park ISD.
Excellent. Great. All right. Anybody else have anything else on their list that you haven't had a chance to share yet?
I have one more.
Okay.
And it kind of ties into my first point, but just all the resources that we provide the parents. So like Wi-Fi, you know, the laptops for the students, lunches during the summertime. Let's see. Just any resource that we provide that makes students feel more comfortable coming to school and more prepared, and helping the parents feel more at ease.
Yes. Okay. Great. Thank you. All right. So that's a long list, and that's a great list. And there was some overlap on some of those. And then, so if you notice, the second question up there on the slide is, how might these measures of success be expressed to our community, and how can they be monitored, right, by the team of 8? Now, I want to be real careful about that last part, about monitored. So if I'm going to ask you to think back. We'll see how good the teacher was. I was the teacher when you went through our evaluating and improving student outcomes training. But do y'all remember our conversation about inputs and outcomes? And the difference between those? The outcomes are, you know, what you get at the end of a cycle. The inputs are the things that you invest in. And if y'all remember, I used an analogy of a sports team, like a professional sports team. And we said, so if we use football, let's use baseball. We're in baseball season now. We said baseball, you know, that I asked, you know, what was the outcome? What is the outcome of a baseball team? And answers like, well, we want to win games. We want to win, you know, win championships. And yes, that's true. And using the analogy of a professional sports team, I said, who's responsible for setting the standard for the outcomes? The coach or the owner? Do y'all remember what the answer was? Is it who sets the standard maybe I'll use a non-baseball, because Houston just had, the Houston football team, the Texans, has a new coach that was hired, D'Amico Ryans. So I imagine when he was hired, there has been a conversation between the coach and the owner. And during that conversation, an expectation for if for next season to be successful, X needs to happen. Who's responsible for setting that expectation? Is it the team owner or the coach?
The owner.
I think so.
The owner, right? The owner. Now, and that may look different across the NFL. You know, for one team it may be a winning season. For another team it may be winning the Super Bowl. How we define success. Part of that is defined on what is your starting point, right? So, in the school system, who is the owner, or if I'm talking about, I'll narrow it down to two answers, multiple choice. The board or the superintendent? Who is like the team owner in a school district?
The board.
Right, the board, you represent. And then superintendent is like the coach, right? Coach is deciding the inputs, the game plan, the practice schedule, who the starting quarterback's going to be, unless you're, somebody always says, well, except for the Dallas Cowboys. And that guy, like, so we don't use them as an example. So there were some I think there were some inputs and there were some outcomes on this list, right? If I look at this list and I think about things like, community supports and extracurricular success and retention of staff, and those can all be measured in types of outcomes. And then some are inputs, right? They're very important, but they're inputs. I love the conversation about visibility. Visibility is an important input, I believe. And so, the reason I bring up the difference between inputs and outputs is because I would encourage you as a board to spend your time looking at the outcomes. And if you're looking at the outcomes and you're getting success with the outcomes, then that means the inputs are doing their job. You only have so much time in a board meeting. You only have so much time in how often do you do like a report, like every other week or month or?
Every week.
Every week?
Every week.
Like a kind of a Friday report or something like that? Thursday report, right. But y'all only have so much time to read those, right? And you don't pay this person or his staff to just sit around and write reports all the time, right?
Exactly.
So there's this balance of how do we want to monitor some of these things? So I would encourage you, as you're having conversations with Dr. Moore, is what are the big, I call them levers. What are the things that really move the needle? You're obviously going to measure you're going to monitor the A through F accountability system, because actually you're required by law to have a hearing at least once every year where you go over I'm going to show my age here, I used to call it the AEIS, the taper, the Texas, or the Texas Accountability or Academic Progress Report. So you're going to have those opportunities. But some of these other things that don't show up on that I think that's the conversation, because you can't monitor everything. You don't have the time to do that, and you don't want to. You want your staff working on the main thing and not just working on board reports, right, all the time. So what would be some of those ways? Some of those things are already being taken care of. Safety. Right now, by law, you're required now, you get reports on the safety audits, right, that are going on. But for instance, you heard, like the example at the very beginning in our introductions, the great things you're doing in terms of staff retention. Maybe as a board, you want to hear about that a couple of times a year, an update on those retention matters. So
Mr. McGowan, since your visit last year, we've gotten I think we do it every 3 months, a quarterly report that goes out that has a lot of this stuff in it.
Oh,
now, I'm not going to tell you that it has it all, but it has a whole lot of this stuff in it. And it's all done in graphics, so it's very, very easy to read. They don't have to really spend a whole lot of time. They can just flip through and see pretty fast.
Oh, excellent.
So we're kind of on our way. Now, we can
Uh-huh.
always get
Yep.
better and refine it now.
Right, right. Well, that's great. I mean, to have that, and I remember, I think when I came out and visited either last time or time before last, y'all were talking about that and what kind of format y'all wanted that to look like. I'd love to see a copy of that sometime. But the other part of that question is, how are these measures of success to be expressed by our community? Now, I heard a little bit of an answer from one of you were talking about your video clips or things like that. But we, I think it's important that we can't just assume that the community knows the great things that are going on. And y'all have a great communications team, I know that. But it may be, if these things are this important to this board, if you grow your own efforts in a way to retain quality staff is really a priority for you, then your community ought to know that. So what are some ways, it sounds like y'all already have some ways, what are some ways that you're getting the good news out about these things that we've listed?
We have what we call a Community Leadership Council, and that's where representatives of the community come and meet with the superintendent. We have local pastors, we have business owners, parents. It's made up of people in the community. They give input to the superintendent, and the superintendent give input to them. And one of the great things is that in Galena Park, we've established a relationship with mostly all of these local churches, wouldn't you say, John? That when something is going on, we can send something out to them.
Right.
So that they can communicate it to the congregations, like if we giving free, 100% free lunch or free breakfast, and
Okay.
they can come and get it. If we're offering shots, so we communicate.
Okay.
Are we perfect with it? Do we get everybody? Not always, but we are communicating. Other than the video is excellent.
Yeah.
Even all of us that are retired, and some not even in the district, get to see the video and know what's going on in Galena Park.
Gotcha.
I have my Deer Park buddies telling me stuff that's going on in Galena Park. I said, well, I saw it on Dr. Moore's video. I thought, okay.
Okay.
But we do have that opportunity, and we have committees that we sit on, and
Great.
some of us get to sit on some of those committees, but I know Community Leadership Council
Right.
is a very, very strong one, that we can see what's going on in the school district and bring to the district things that people are concerned about in the community.
Gotcha. Excellent. Thank you. Thanks for sharing those.
We also have a group of students that meet with Dr. Moore.
Okay.
On
Like a student advisory.
Student advisory,
So
yes.
our Student Advisory Council is another good way of getting, the good word or message out of what we're doing. But, Dr. Moore's Monday morning message, I always look forward to that because there's always lots of good information there, and our kids participate in it. And I think a lot of people see that as a very positive way of communicating, not only internally but with our community.
And during COVID, it was every week.
You're right.
Since we're kind of coming out of COVID, we do it about every 2 weeks now.
Gotcha. Okay.
And besides the website, I have to bring up the fact that we did it through a billboard. They did that, and it was a hit. So I
What
don't
was
want
that
to-
again? I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
They did the billboard.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
We had a
Had
few
this-
billboards out where
Yeah,
we hired
uh-huh.
officers on every campus. We put up
Oh, okay.
officer on every campus in Galena
Oh,
Park.
great.
Bring your children.
Uh-huh.
Really cool.
We're hiring teachers, 93% retention rate. That was up on the billboard, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Branding and when I entered this business years ago, I was learning Madeline Hunter's lesson cycle. I wasn't learning things about, branding and marketing. But branding and marketing is critical, to your success.
Galena Park ISD is a great place to be.
Yeah.
That's the brand.
And we have made yard signs, and they're all over the community.
That's awesome.
I have one in my yard.
So let's go back as we kind of wrap. We'll transition here in a little bit from this, measures of success. But before we do, I want to go back to kind of the very beginning. And what are your thoughts as we embark on, and some of it is uncertainty, but as we embark on at least some changes to the accountability system? What are your thoughts about the importance, the even greater importance of making sure your community is aware of these successes? So in other words, I think I've probably given away the answer, but do you see and believe that probably today more than ever, it's important that we be active about that? And it sounds like I'm preaching to the choir. It sounds like y'all are already doing a lot of those things.
Yeah, I think it's important that our parents know our success and our community knows how successful we are. And we can do that through communication, branding, marketing, making sure that people know.
Yeah.
I still believe that, the public education is a cornerstone of all community. So I think, us getting that message out and making sure that, we are constantly giving our community things to look for, positive things to look for within our school district is a huge advantage. And I think we do a good job of it.
Yeah. I'm glad you brought that up because if you remember earlier, I made reference to the framework for school board development in the state of Texas, and I mentioned that one of the pillars is vision and values. Another one of the pillars is advocacy and outreach. And you actually have a duty, a responsibility to engage with your community and to advocate on behalf of your students. And part of that, I'm glad, Trustee Esparza, the way you mentioned that is really advocating for public education and what an example of what an exemplar here in Galena Park of the things that are happening in public education. And so I think today more than any other time, at least in I think the past half a century, it is the job of a board member. I'm going to say something that, and I promise you, Dr. Moore didn't ask me to say this, but I'm going to say this. Oftentimes, as elected officials, oftentimes advocacy that comes from you can even carry a little bit more than advocacy that comes from folks like Dr. Moore and I that are our employees, right? Not that advocating our superintendents and the region do a great job in that, but there's something about an elected official, doing that as well. So I think right now, as we see conversations in the public about the value of public education, and then this is a way. This is a way, this practice we just did, this wasn't just, I didn't ask you to come up with this list just so you could meet your team of 8 training requirement. I want you to think about these, and next time as you have opportunities to advocate, of saying, yeah, let me tell you how we measure success and give you some very real examples. And then also be able to, because let's face it, at the end of the day, the most important, schools exist so that students can learn, right? So we're not saying that learning reading, learning writing, learning marketable employment skills, those are all important. Those things are measured by the A through F accountability system. But there's a lot of these other things that actually help students. Campus clinics, right? If students not healthy, students not going to be able to learn. Maslow's hierarchy of needs, right? So anyway, I'll get off my soapbox about that. But I do, my encouragement to you is that you use this information of how you measure success as you advocate for your district and public education. And as a reminder, just know that that actually is a part of the framework for school board development. What thoughts about that advocacy role do you have before we wrap up this section?
What was the question again?
What thoughts about your role as a board member? How do you view your role as advocating on behalf of both your district and also public education in general?
That's a good question.
I think, well,
Or what
personally,
does
I
that
think-
look like? What are ways that you see that you are advocating as a board member? What are ways that you believe what are some behaviors things that you do that you think you're advocating? In doing that, you're advocating on behalf of public education or your district?
I think that, oh,
I think it comes from an idea, right? And so I know that the early college school was just an idea that was brought to the board or was brought to the school, and through a lot of hard work, we were able to open the early college high school. So I think it goes from us going to these conferences, networking and getting ideas from other districts and what looks or appears to be successful and bringing it to our district. So I think we're constantly advocating for our students and our teachers and making sure that we are, competitive with first-year salaries or these bonuses that we do. So I think it's something that you're passionate about, like Noe is passionate about an aviation's center or school or certification. And so I think it just begins first with an idea, a passion, and just bringing it forth and seeing how we can successfully start a program.
Yeah. Yeah, it sounds like when I hear you say the idea, I think of innovation. So it's that you
We are
advocate
district of
for an
innovation.
environment in which innovation is welcomed and supported. Yeah. Trustee Johnson?
oh, she took my answer.
That's what,
Because I was going to say.
so
you know,
amen to that, right?
Yes, because I was going to mention conferences and meetings and trainings.
Yeah, actually, that's an important part too, is as a board member, engaging in your learning, your continued learning is also another way to advocate. Yeah, exactly. Any other ideas?
Yeah,
Ms.
I
Shar?
had one in my short time. Serving as an advocate, allowing the community to know that they can come to you. You can't answer. I've experienced, and I've had to call John and tell him, but the great thing about it is the response time. When I've had one person that is constantly sending me messages about concerns. I called him, he directed them to the appropriate person, and they get back, they call and they express appreciation, but advocating, trying to get them to understand that they can come to the district
Right.
with these concerns, but if they choose to come to a board member, I make sure they know they're welcome
Okay.
to come to me. I don't try to give them an answer to solve it or tell them this. I said, let me get with the person that will tell you who will contact you.
Right.
So to me, that's advocating on both ends.
It is.
That
Right.
public education, Galena Park ISD, as well as if a parent or a community person have a concern.
Exactly.
And I've encountered quite a few of those in my short time.
Right, and advocating, in some ways you advocate for folks, those individually, but when you kind of lead them in the right direction
Yeah.
of how to get their concern addressed. Any other ideas on how you advocate?
For me personally, because I am a product of the district, I think, being now on the board and, talking to people, advocating for our district, I think gives me just a little different perspective, or people see it as a different perspective because they understand that I came through this system. I was educated here, and now I'm back to serve.
Wow.
And I
Right.
think that has a special impact, and I think it's a little more impactful. And so for me, I think using that to advocate to about our schools, just simply telling people, hey, I'm from here.
Right.
I'm a product of this school and this district, so.
That's another version of grow your own.
Yep.
You know, we talked about grow your own, think about it mostly in terms of staff, but grow your own in
Yeah.
terms of leadership, here, so,
Absolutely.
all right. All right, any other thoughts about this defining success before we're actually gonna take a quick break, but any thoughts about that before we take our break? All right, so this is your break, not mine. I'll be taking it with you. But 5, 10, or 15 minutes, what do you want?
10.
10?
Max.
Everybody 10, good?
Need everyone in a stretch.
Okay, yep, stand up, yep. All right, let's take 10 minutes.
Everybody in the restroom, y'all know you got one right back there, right? I'll go to the one out the hall.
It is freezing.
I'm freezing in here.
All right. So the second part of our time together this afternoon is related to your board operating procedures. Board operating procedures are an important support document for any school board, and I think it's a good practice periodically for a board just to actually just check what their understanding or familiarity is with board operating procedures. So here's what I think I will do. And Trustee Sanchez, I apologize for this because it's a little hard. I'll let you work on these individually. I'm going to have the rest of the folks in the room. What I want you to do is we're going to go through some scenarios and questions. And let's do it this way. Maybe I'll have you work in threes, and then you and I can work together. I'll have you work on each side. Y'all can work in groups of 3. So here's the deal. This is open notebook test, so it's not even a test. It's just an assignment. So if you look at your handout, it's going to be the same thing on the slide. There are questions from your own board operating procedures. So I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to go to the next slide. So this is the question. Now notice, I even told you what page to look at. And so this is, yeah, right? Right. I'm the teacher you all love to have, that I gave you the open notebook assignment. And I even told you what page to look on.
Oh, yeah.
So in this scenario, you would look at the scenario. It's either going to be an open-ended question like this, or it'll be true, false. And you have the next, if you look through your handout, you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 questions. So I want you to work together as a group of 3. It's not a race. I know sometimes we got right. You've already done it. So talk about, and then Trustee Sanchez will give you an opportunity when we go through the answers as a group. We'll hear from you. But I want you to just test how familiar are you, and looking through. It's okay to look through them and see if you can answer each one of those 6 questions. So I'm going to be quiet. Are there any questions about the task at hand? Nope. All right, we'll start working with your group.
We already know the answers without even looking.
Some of them you may already know off the top of your head.
Let her come right here. Superintendent.
According to GPISD board according to BOP, board operating procedures, true or false? Board president is the official spokesperson for the district.
Yeah, that's I just had to call her. Oh, my God.
I used to have the calls.
How many days?
It says a minimum of 2 board members.
No, one. But how many, no later than,
This time I always call.
how soon before?
Even my sister doesn't call me anymore.
I know the time frame. Well, actually, they say he requires different. I know who can help you. On the agenda, see, we get the agenda. Don't mind, I'm just gonna pull it out. We get them on the third, if you don't hear anything, they should make them request. I send it to a, who I think can handle it, like, you just have to go.
Yeah, I sent it to him.
72 hours. Less than 72 hours in advance, unless the case of an emergency.
Not too much solve it, but work on it. And it works.
Because we get them on a Thursday afternoon.
It helps.
Huh? We get them on a Thursday. No, this is, it said if you require additional.
But it's 48 hours. 72 hours is the time it takes
To post it?
To post it.
Yeah,
Just
and
48 hours
I would, that's who I go to.
the time
Because she's my go-to
prior
girl.
to the meeting that
really
you have to get any clarification on
when I
agenda.
was in the school. So I just kind of,
Board members who require additional information or clarification.
she's,
48 hours.
and another time I did, and he said, but I know who to get the answer from. You know, so it works.
Which is true for board member visits to
Pass it
campus.
along.
Board members are encouraged to visit schools. Board members should not visit campus unannounced for the purpose of evaluation. Board members shall call the superintendent going to a campus, visiting with campus administrators on official matters. That's actually all the legal things, I think. Let's see.
That's exactly, yes.
It's gonna say.
Oh, because it says purpose of evaluation.
Yeah, I just,
Can't evaluate.
I used to do.
And we don't evaluate personal campus
I
meetings.
did go to one, yeah, especially in New York. And they would say, you know, since we pay him, that's who's in charge. But at first, I was trying to, you know, I didn't feel like it, and I was called to the, and I had to make it take time to make sure I got the
But not to go other than
I
the
leave it
teacher's classroom.
like that one.
But I do listen, I do listen, I do, yeah, okay, go ahead.
In addition to the evaluation of the superintendent, Jeannie assess the work of the team.
Any money?
In trouble.
Okay, which one does that refer to?
It's on the same page, so
So the superintendent is the official spokesperson for the district.
Board self-evaluation. Board will routinely assess the status of the board's strategic team.
The what, the what?
yeah, media,
Evaluations are considered
wait,
some
and
type
has
of
it,
role recognition relationship.
has it spelled out.
Well, just for the board, not the district.
You are the,
Official spokesperson
for the board, not for the district, for the.
That's a tremendous
Man, you
responsibility.
I can read, because I saw.
That would not be a different story, we can do that.
Next, true or false, a minimum of 2 board members must request an agenda item before it can be placed on the agenda.
No, it's not true. That's false. Let's look at that, let's make sure. I think it'd be good, yeah, it'd be one.
And where is that? Oh, there it is, developing an agenda. It could be just one person.
There's no policy that prevents him from adding multiple items.
Any trustee may request that an
And
item
then be included in.
Because he just got elected.
No, according to the GPISD, trustees operating procedure, they said before the presentation of clarification of any board item, they should submit the request to the superintendent.
Oh, there it is, 72.
Is it 72?
72.
Oh, we got it in bold.
Item, maybe place of business. Okay, that's it.
Look at the next one, 48.
Oh, there it is, okay.
Anyway,
So how many can we have?
there's no limit, but it only takes one board member to do it.
To add?
I think we should have at least 2 board members, because that way,
What
you
query
have,
is
you have to talk to someone about, supporting maybe what you're asking for.
Oh, you have to,
I would suggest that we have changed our board policy, our BOP, to reflect that we need to have 2 board members
are encouraged to visit
bring, 14 items.
it's local?
Y'all need some more time, or you have it?
I just have a question.
Oh,
Board operating procedures for board members bringing agenda items, where is it in our BOP?
I looked at that one. In fact, I thought there's a,
Is it under board meetings?
look under page 8, developing the agenda.
I was just looking, you know what's coming in from there. Yes. Because see, I be calling her.
Look at the second bullet, trustee Esparza.
So it should be,
It's all over. I know. You know I wasn't on the ship.
and where was that in here? Does it,
Be local. The deadline for submitting items for included in the agenda is on the 14th day before regular meetings and noon the 7th day before special meetings. The developing agenda. See, so right now, only one trustee can bring as many as he wants. Exactly. So John was saying that other districts around us are changing that policy to 2.
so how do we assess the evaluation? Through our meetings, through our discussions? Is it local or legal? Discussions. Because it has both, board PE local and
Not for bullet point 2.
any trustee may request an item be included on a board meeting agenda by contesting the board member. BE's local. The deadline for submitting items for inclusion. Because I mean, that's how we evaluate ourselves. Here's the evaluation superintendent. Okay, the time frame, so that's. Oh, here we go.
Where are you? Oh, you're here. You went to the next page.
That's why we have to review.
All right, does anybody need any more time? Y'all got your answers?
We got ours.
Do you? And you, oh, not that we're competitive or anything over here, but we have a 100, huh? All right. And Trustee Sanchez, you have enough time to look at those?
Yes, yes, I have.
Okay, great. All right, very good.
We made 100, didn't we?
We made- Y'all are I tell people this, I teach that superintendent certification class too, and I said, I know some of y'all are bluebirds. Y'all were the bluebirds when you were in school, you wanted to get 100 and the smiley face and the star on everything. So that's good. We strive for success. All right, so let's go through these. We'll go through these as a group, and we'll talk about each of these and see what we come up with. So, the first one: what action should a board member take if receiving a complaint from a citizen or a staff member? And that's on page 7.
Hey, John?
Or I get a beep on my phone and it's one of them forwarded to me.
Right. So I heard,
So we
that
listen, we get as
We
much
listen?
detail as
Okay.
possible, and
Right.
then we
right,
contact the superintendent,
yeah.
and he will point us in the right direction or have someone follow up with him.
Right, right. Anybody else remember anything else about that? That pretty much encapsulate it?
I think so.
Yeah, the key words, I highlighted some things as I was going through it. The listen, right? Listen first. You know, it's not an immediate, oh, sorry, you can't talk to me. You know, you do listen. And then I underline this part, remain impartial.
Oh, yeah.
Right, remaining impartial. Now, I think the obvious definition of that is well, first of all, legally, remember as a board, I'm going to go back now. Trustee Sherrod, you're the one who most recently went through new board member orientation, so we'll see. But do y'all remember that phrase, body corporate, when it talks about a board? Do you remember that it's a legal phrase from the Texas Education Code? And it refers to when a board has authority and when they don't have authority, right? You have authority as a body corporate, only as voting, you know, as an individual board member, right? So there's a legal, you know, element of remaining impartial. So in other words, you can't just say, oh, well, okay, I'm listening to your concern and I'm going to make a decision about that. So we already know that. Here's the trickier part about remaining impartial. Is that when you're hearing that complaint or that concern, you're hearing one version or side of that, right? So and sometimes those concerns, and they can be real concerns, and knowing, but having to remind ourselves. And it's not just board members that deal with this. I'm sure Dr. Moore deals with this too, as you know, as an administrator too. It's that, you know, the first time you hear about something, there's probably more information too that needs to be gathered. So I thought that remaining impartial, you know, and non-committal, and then yes, referring it to the superintendent. Now, let me ask you this. This wasn't on the question, so a little bonus points here for those of you who are keeping points. How would you grade yourself as a board on adhering to this section of the board operating procedures?
An A.
A.
An A?
Yeah.
An A.
Absolutely an A.
An A. Okay.
Only because, you know, we are not experts at everything that goes on
Right.
on a day-to-day basis. And
Yeah.
so I think that we can use our, you know, it's best to use our time connecting the dots. So providing the resource and making sure that the issue is followed up.
Right.
We're not experts, but we know the experts.
Right.
We
I
know
can
who
point
is,
you in the
right?
right direction.
Well, and you pay someone, right, to be
Exactly.
the expert.
The good news is I'd give him an A too.
You give him an A to that. Now, I wasn't going to put you on the spot, but yeah, since you're offering it up.
I'd give him an A.
Good, good. You know what, the other thing I liked about this too is the third bullet there. Board members will inform the superintendent within 24 hours of complaints they feel may reach his office. I use this saying both with new board members and with aspiring superintendents. So with aspiring superintendents, the version sounds like this. Kindergartners like surprises, but board members do not. With aspiring with new board members, it's kindergartners like surprises, but superintendents do not. So I really like that hey, if you think it's going to reach his office, that you're not going to wait till the next board meeting, right? He would probably like to have a heads up.
Now,
about
I
that.
would say, if I could guess, it's probably within the hour.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
like, so we won't forget. It's like
Well, that's another part,
copy,
so I won't
paste,
forget.
like
Right.
send.
Right. Very good. Very good. Any other thoughts about this one before we go on to the next one?
Well, I know one thing, they don't pay us.
You're right.
We pay him.
Right.
So
Right.
I would like to put everything on his shoulder and let
Yeah.
him
Yeah.
take it from there.
Exactly. And back to our conversation about inputs, outputs, and outcomes, you know.
Yeah.
Most of the time, these concerns are about inputs, right? I mean, rarely are you going to get stopped in the grocery store aisle or the church parking lot or at the Little League Park and said, hey, I've got a complaint about the trend line on our early childhood literacy results, right? That's not going to be the question. It's going to be, I want to talk to you about the pothole in the car rider pickup line at my child's elementary school, right? And so that really is. Now, if the question was about maybe their tax rate or something like that, then maybe that is something that is board action. But oftentimes those citizen and employee issues are really things that can be resolved at the input issue and not the outcome issue. All right, let's look at the next one. True or false? Oh, wait, did I skip? Let me make sure I've got these in. Yeah, I got it. Okay, true or false? The board president is the official spokesperson for the district. That's also on page 7.
I think Adrian wants to be, but
False.
False. True or false? It is false. Now, I got a little tricky on that. Did y'all notice?
You did.
Yes,
I
you said
did.
district.
What was my trick? You're right. The word district. Thank you. What if I had said the board president is the official spokesperson for the board?
That would be
correct.
true.
Very true.
That's correct.
So
But-
I did get, but,
Again.
right, yeah, right. I did get, but that's an important, it's just, I just changed one word, right? District or board, but it's an important distinction. And to give you an example, right? Again, I'll use the example, you know, if the question is about board action, right? If the question was, you know, the board voted to call for a tax ratification election or a bond election, the media may want to hear from the board. But if the question is, what specific items are included in a bond election, you're going to want your detailed person, right, from the district answering those. So, yeah. So, yeah, I did get a little tricky with that. Or to use a technical phrase, persnickety. I got a little persnickety with that one. All right, another true-false question is, true-false, a minimum of 2 board members must request an agenda item before it can be placed on the agenda. And that's on page 8. False. What do your board operating procedures say about that?
Any board member.
Any one.
All right, any trustee. So I'm not only here as a trainer, but I'm here as I kind of view myself as a coach when I work with boards. So I do want to say something about this. First of all, I like your board operating procedure document. I think it's clean, it's concise, it covers the important things that need to be covered. I think it's well organized. I have seen, because I work with other districts and doing board operating procedures, I have seen a practice where more and more districts are going to something a little bit more specific with this, or not more specific, but they're really trying to kind of be more mindful about protecting their board agendas so that they can focus on the main thing. So what I'm seeing is it's becoming more and more common for districts to have a practice to where it's 2 or more board members requesting an item to be placed on the agenda. That may be something. Let me give you a couple of reasons why I think that could work well for you, and then I want to hear from you. First is it's beneficial to the member who is requesting that the agenda item be placed on, because you build in your board operating procedures, you almost build in a mechanism where you have some collaboration and some ability to bounce it off of someone else. My guess is, even though it wouldn't belong in board operating procedures because it's part of administrative procedures, but my guess is on Dr. Moore's team, there's not just one single employee that brings an item forth. There's a vetting that goes through, and I want to be real clear here that this is not done in an effort to keep things off the agenda. It's done in an effort to make sure that the things that really need to be on the agenda make it on the agenda. And that it protects your time and your focus. And it also makes sure that your staff maintains their time and focus of running your district on a day-to-day basis. Because, creating and supporting and researching board agenda items takes time and effort, and if it takes time and effort, it may be pulling it away from something else. So anyway, that's just something I recognized as I was going through. What thoughts do y'all have about that?
Excuse me, what you're saying is good for one trustee to bounce it off on another trustee. That's basically what you're saying, to kind of get some
Right,
feedback.
to have two trustees, right, to
Trustees,
collaborate
okay.
with another, or I say collaborate, to confer with another trustee, and that request come from two trustees.
Okay,
So,
gotcha.
so a policy change to, or a board of procedures change
Yeah.
to take it from one to two. I look at it from a little different lens as well. And I'm not saying this because I think we have this problem here, because we don't, because we have a very cohesive board. But I think doing that would also promote cohesiveness, right? Because if you need someone's help to bring a board agenda item, I mean, it's going to require you to have a relationship with that person and be nice to that person. And I think it promotes, togetherness and being a little more cohesive. So that's just
So I have
another
a
opinion.
comment.
Okay.
I've actually been hearing some surrounding boards doing this.
Right.
So I didn't know all the details you just talked about, but I've been hearing, because people have asked me what our, some of my superintendent friends have asked me what our standard is, and I tell them, and they say, oh, well, we just changed ours. And, I don't know how many boards in the state of Texas do it one way versus the other way, but this has been talk for at least 2 years. I started hearing it during COVID, because, during COVID, people had so many varying opinions of how it should be handled.
Yep.
And it was, one person with one opinion was kind of taken over, because as soon as they brought it up in a public meeting, nobody could come to consensus. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So I've been hearing about it for about maybe 2.5 years. So, if that's something that we feel strongly about, we can surely make that change. Now, you guys understand, you have to vote on that.
Right.
And we're in the midst of an election cycle, and so, a new trustee has to be trained. So my suggestion would be, if we wanted to change it, that's good, we can, but we hold the agenda to be voted on, the operating procedures to be voted on until we have our new board member, so they get a vote. Does that make sense?
That makes sense.
So they get a vote saying that they're for that.
Right.
Y'all follow what I'm saying? So we probably wouldn't see it till the June meeting.
Okay, Robbie.
Yes,
well,
ma'am.
Let me ask a question. If that is the case, and correct me if I'm wrong, if I could say this, would it be more feasible to say no more than 2 board members may request an item?
Actually, it would be, instead of no more than, it would be
Yes,
at
two or more,
least. Yeah, at
But-
least.
But it can't
like
be
that.
too many more after that anyway, because it'll be a quorum.
That's correct.
So,
You're correct.
Oh, I see what you're saying,
Yeah, you
yes.
see what I'm
So,
saying? Yeah, so-
okay, that's a great point, yeah, thank you. There is an Open Meetings Act component, I'm glad you brought that up. So, remember, the Open Meetings Act precludes you from doing what's called sometimes canvassing. So in other words, if I'm a board member and I'm going to get on the phone and I'm going to call Trustee Esparza, then I'm going to call Trustee Sherrard, I'm going to call, right. It's simply to find another board member. So I see what you're saying there. You want to, and it may not be a bad idea to work with Lisa.
We'll get legal counsel to help
work
us
on the
word
wording
it correctly.
to make sure you're encouraging it, but that's a great point. I had not thought about that. And interestingly, as I look at it, if right now, the way it's written, is a trustee can request it by just contacting the board president. Well, the board president is a board member. So it may not change, the process may not change a whole lot if the board president may also then be the second board member that has, that wants that to be an agenda item. Or if not, it's like, hey, we as two trustees, we want to place this on the agenda, and then we contact the board president.
I think Herbert had, I thought I heard him wanting to say something.
Oh, I'm sorry. Trustee Sanchez, did you have something to say?
I just had a question regarding that. So, for example, during the COVID era, when the face mask was a really controversial topic amongst boards, where some boards did not want face masks and others wanted it. So, for example, if there was one board member that has been contacted by many people in the community that want an item to be voted on, such as face masks, what precludes the other 6 from holding that item hostage if they're not for it?
Right. So that, I can see where that could be a concern about this. I think as we talked about earlier, though, I really look at this as an opportunity to really collaborate ahead of time, to talk with a fellow board member and say, this is why I believe it's important. It's important. This is why I believe it's important. And I'm simply asking that, would you agree to have it come to the agenda? I'm not asking you, this is not to have a conversation, because back to the Open Meetings Act, it's not to have a conversation about which way would you vote on this item. It's just, would you be willing to have this item be discussed and acted on by the board?
Right, and that was the second part of the question. When you do that, doesn't that open you up to the Open Meetings Act for something that you may include in there? For example, a wording that you may say to the other trustee, and once that trustee hangs up the phone and that person calls another trustee to get their take on it, and then, pretty much establishing the daisy chain.
Right, and that's why I think we talked about working with your legal counsel to make sure that the wording, because, other districts have this practice. And so I think you'll find that there's a way to word it legally that would protect you, well, as long as you followed the procedures, that would then protect you from violating the Open Meetings Act.
Right, because that would just be on paper. I mean, it could be on paper, and, your conversation might go differently, because some people may not even read the policy manual. And they just know that they need a second person to add something to the agenda, and, they go and ask a question, and then it turns into something different. I mean, those are just concerns that I have regarding that, the hostage situation and then the dating team situation.
Gotcha.
And in that case, I kind of understand what Herbert's concern is. Let's say, I have a lot of people that have contacted me, and you want to show that you are listening, that you did advocate for this to be on the board, and if you don't have support from another board member, then your supporters or your constituents or the people that you're advocating for don't really see that, you've advocated for their concern.
Right.
But on the flip side, this is just to, me going to Noe and saying, hey, you may not agree with it, but can you just at least support me or support this issue just to have it on the agenda,
Right.
and then allow the board to vote on it.
Mm-hmm.
So I think you'd have to the board would have to come from an understanding of, I may not support this, but I'm going to support you in putting this on the agenda.
Right. Thank
Well,
you.
can you eliminate all of, oh, go ahead, Herbert.
Oh, sorry, I got a delay on my phone. But, that going along with what President Stevens said, you know, advocating for the community as well. And again, your vote is just one vote. So when you place something on the agenda for the board to vote on, then it shows community engagement because you have voiced their concern, and now it's up to the board to make a decision cohesively. But if we cannot get a second person because there's animosity or something, then it becomes a big issue.
Well,
Yeah.
that could be
Well,
resolved.
I mean, I think if you can't
Robbie.
get nobody else to support you on that, to put it on the agenda, it's not gonna get passed anyway. And I know where you're talking, because I know, where we don't want to just be putting anything on the agenda just to put stuff on the agenda. We want to make sure that we're gonna put it on the agenda because it's right for our kids, not just because we want to put it on agenda and just say, just because I want to put agenda items and just keep putting agenda items and putting agenda items. If it's not benefit the kids, or if it's not, we need to make sure that we're going to put stuff that is going to pass.
Right.
Yeah, and I will say
Right,
that
and
we haven't, I've been on the board for 6 years. Y'all have been on the board longer, and I haven't experienced that where people just put agenda items on there just to hijack the meeting but I'm sure it's happened before, and I do understand the importance of having at least two people not necessarily support the agenda item, but just support that it's being put on the agenda.
Right. Yep. Trustee Johnson, were you going to say something?
Well, you could take care of that by saying one or two. Would it be, to kind of satisfy other people? Because it is a possibility, like Adrian and Herbert are saying, that one person might feel strongly about an issue. And I wouldn't like for that person to be kind of erased and say, hey, forget about it. Can we think about this later and possibly, include maybe one or two? Because you never know where things are going in the future.
Yeah.
But the board policy today states that one board member. So we have that, right, already?
We have that, yeah.
Yes.
We have that already.
And
I think maybe we
like
need
I
to
said,
do a workshop
thi-
and
this-
get examples.
Yeah, this all started, I started hearing about it during COVID, because for the exact example Herbert brought up, and it was about the things that districts were doing regarding, the COVID safety. And our whole country was divided, all the boards were divided all over the state of Texas. And what was happening is one board member in some school districts was bringing something in that maybe the other six were against, and they were just putting item after item after item about the same types of stuff on the agenda, and they were hijacking the agenda, so the board was having trouble getting through their business. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so school districts started moving to this. Now, I asked our attorney about it during that time, and she told me she would get with me and help me, but then, we moved on, and it hadn't been an issue, so I kind of dropped it until Dr. McGowan brought it up today, and I was just telling you what I've heard, and, political times are tough right now, and, part of my job as a superintendent is to recommend to y'all things that protect you as a board. And I believe that if one of you feels so strongly about something, that you should be able to convince one other person.
Yeah, I agree with you.
One other person is not, and so.
It's like Adrian said, you're not agreeing to
Sure,
support that,
sure.
Vote yes or no,
And
whatever.
y'all all have.
You're just agreeing to have that item put on the agenda so it can come before the
And
board.
right now, we've all got really good relationships,
Yep.
so I don't see that that's gonna be I'm not
don't either.
foreseeing a problem. I'm just telling you what I'm hearing, in the general school board superintendent relationships.
Yeah, let me give one more example, and again, just something to consider. And I think this may be another reason why, some other districts have required that two board members request one, is that And I don't think you're in a situation right now with this board where this would happen, but I can't tell you that I haven't seen other boards in other places. The names will remain unknown to protect the innocent or not so, right. But where, there's an item actually in your board member code of ethics. It's if you want to look at it, it's in policy BBF local, every district's policy BBF local. And it says that I will honor the majority decision as a decision of the board. All right, it's part of what board members do. What has happened is as you heard, unfortunately, there are some places and some times where folks have not adhered to that principle. And so what they can do is just keep bringing the same item, right? I brought an item, it didn't get the resolution I wanted, I'm going to bring it again. And that can kind of, like we said, hijack a meeting. And so, these are policies that are created by and followed by human beings, which make them by definition imperfect. But what you're trying to do, I liked what Dr. Moore said too, is to protect you and to protect your meetings so that you can focus on the main thing and not be distracted by some of those others.
I believe we just need to have a workshop, and we just need to move on with today's meeting, because I don't want to be here past 6, so.
Okay.
We do a workshop in May or June. It's too late for the April meeting, but that's my opinion. 'Cause
Well,
it
that
looks
may,
like
that
if
may
not,
give
we're
you
gonna
a
be here
chance
all
to
night.
talk to legal counsel
Even
about
the
what the
Astro's
wording
already
is.
played, so that doesn't matter, but still.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so let's look at the next question. If a board member requires additional information or clarification on any agenda items, they should submit the request to the superintendent no later than blank. That's also on page 8.
48 hours.
Developing the agenda, bullet 6.
What's that?
Developing the agenda, bullet 6.
Yep, bullet 6. Yep, bullet 6.
48
No more than 48 hours. Why do you think that's important?
So they can get the answers. We
Because
can
you don't ask
collect
for
the
it the day of the
information.
meeting.
You want the most accurate information possible, right? And sometimes that information takes some research. So yeah, I like this too. I see this is a common one I also see with other boards. I picked this one because I wanted to give y'all kudos for having that in there. All right. So the next one, according to your trustees, your GPISD trustees operating procedures, which is true for board member visits to campuses? This is on page 12.
D,
All of the above, yeah. Try to get tricky with that one too, right? But all of the above, yeah, all of the above. So, yeah, you're encouraged to visit schools. So, this is important. I say this to new board members a lot. I said, you need to look at your board operating procedures to see what they say about visits to school. I think it was Trustee Hernandez, you were the one that brought up visibility earlier. That's a critical part of leadership, and my guess is in your community, people appreciate, right, your visibility. But you want to have, there are procedures to follow about it. So the first thing to know is these procedures aren't put in place to discourage you from visiting. They're put in place to actually have a good process for you to do that. And then, obviously, you're not there, you're not going unannounced or for the purpose of evaluation, and you let the superintendent know before visiting. We used to joke that, every campus has a little code word that they use whenever there's a board member around. No, I'm joking. I don't think that's true, but maybe it is.
yeah, it's true.
Right, yeah.
Pink Eagle is here.
Yeah, the eagle has landed, right? Now, this gets a little tricky if you've got kiddos, right, in the district too. So, but you're not going there as a board member. Yeah, you're not going there as a.
We got some old principals on the board, so they could probably, if there was a code, we should know.
You would know what it was.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's a little button under the desk, right? That
Yeah.
they can, yeah, right. All right, and then the last one, and this is on it. There's not a page number, So that may be something as y'all renew and just working on page numbering, but
Yeah, it's,
true or false, in addition to evaluating the superintendent, the board should routinely assess the work of the team of 8?
true.
True.
I think it's true too.
True, and your board operating procedures say this, so that's important. There are lots of ways you can do that. But I will tell you, it's actually not, I was glad to see this in your operating procedures. This isn't as common as you may think it is with boards. The law requires you to evaluate the superintendent, but the law doesn't require you to do a self-evaluation, to evaluate the work of the team of 8. So, however, there's actually research out there. Remember I said earlier in the afternoon that there's actually research that shows what practices boards do in the boardroom that have an impact in the classroom, and actually self-evaluation, the board doing a self-evaluation is one of those. So, so I was glad to see that. All right. Everybody make 100? Did everyone make a 100?
Oh, yeah.
We did.
Should I have brought, I apologize, I should have brought little stars to put on your, so you can have a little star on your, so what's next? What's next? So we've done this, and I think we've talked, it sounds like we already know a couple of things about what's next, but what, are there other topics that, as you looked at this, are there any topics that you think need to be, that would be helpful to add to the board operating procedures? Now, I want to tell you something. You don't want to make this thing too long.
Can we cut some out?
And so I think you're in a good place, but if there is a key topic, is there something? And then, of course, what existing, I think we know, we've already had a conversation about what existing sections need more clarity. It sounds like y'all want to have more discussion around the issue about putting an agenda item on the agenda, and Dr. Moore will have an opportunity to visit with legal counsel about that. Any other topics that are either missing or that need more clarity?
I'd like to ask you, you've evaluated or seen more board policies and procedures. Are we missing anything? Do you see anything that we should add?
The only thing I would add, I guess, is I would maybe add some specificity to this word, the board will routinely assess the status of the board superintendent team. And just maybe actually commit to, and what are y'all on a, in terms of superintendent evaluation, are y'all on a, do you do a mid-year and an end-of-year, or just the end-of-year? End-of-year, okay.
But just end of year, but now remember, we're sending out these quarterly, so really they're evaluating me quarterly if
Right.
they see something or whatever. So that's all new.
Yeah, well, that's true. They're evaluating you, but then my question is evaluating you. You also, a
So-
piece of this is not about evaluating the superintendent, but evaluating you. So maybe some specificity about at least annually,
Okay.
the board will assess their work as a team.
Yes.
In addition to the evaluation of the
And
superintendent.
I will say, we do need a tool to
Yeah, at
evaluate.
least annually, yeah.
Yeah, and we need a tool to
Yes.
evaluate ourselves.
Right.
Whether it's a survey or, and then we need to come up with what we're evaluating ourselves, what are our goals, and then how we're measuring it, and then,
There's some, I would encourage you to not start from scratch. There's some resources out there, and I'd be happy to show you some of those. But there's some resources, but the other thing I would tell you is, also, I would encourage you to not necessarily feel like you have to take this one example exactly as it is. You know your community, you know your board. I would look at what already exists out there and pick the things that you think are best suited for your specific board. Yeah.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
Now, when you are evaluating a team of elected officials,
Uh-huh.
what is the end result?
The end result is continuous improvement.
Right.
Yeah, yeah. So the end result, so this, don't think of the evaluation necessarily as just like one number or as a score, but the evaluation, so I'll give you an example. Some boards, I know that there are some boards that have said, we want to evaluate ourselves on how often we are if, like, for instance, our board goals, if we say these are our most important things, our goals, how often are we monitoring those goals, right? So it may be that in 1 year's evaluation, it's like, well, we really only did that one time a year. So for continued improvement, we want to make sure that next year we get kind of like a mid-year status. Of course, it sounds like y'all are getting quarterly status. So it's not, it's really only for the benefit of improving as a team. I've seen, I mean, everything from in terms of participation. You know, what is our participation rate? You know, how long do our meetings last? I've seen one evaluation instrument that actually looks at those kind of things. So, back, Trustee Stevens, back to your other question. There's some things I really like about this. I like the fact that you reference board policy, but you don't actually quote. You don't put board policy into. Because this is not supposed to be board policy. It's supposed to be a kind of a day-to-day clarification of board policy. So you have some exhibits in here, but you really don't get into the meat of it until really on page 6. I would discourage you from making it much longer than it already is. I think you're getting probably too much into the weeds if you end up making it much longer than it already is. I was trying to think as I went through it if there were any other. It's really good. It really is. In fact, I haven't asked Dr. Moore this yet or not, but I'd like to share this. I sometimes get questions about seeing examples of others. So would y'all be, I mean, I know it's a public document, but.
Go ahead.
Yeah, okay.
As long as you share those tools of evaluating. So
Yeah,
I
can share, I'll get with you and can share, you know, there are different organizations that have different tools. And like I said, you can customize it to make it your own, but don't start from scratch. If someone's already plowed that ground, you can benefit from that. Anything else about, in terms of big topics that you think either need to be added or changed? All right, so what I heard was maybe some clarification about the annual self-evaluation, and then also you're going to revisit the issue on the board agenda items. So my last question to you is, how do we as a board want to adopt and regularly review the procedures? So I know I asked that question, but I have a suggested answer for that. You don't have to do this. I'm just the board trainer that comes, in periodically, but I have seen this be a benefit, and actually Dr. Moore's already made mention of this. Anytime a new member joins your team, even if you don't change a single thing about the board operating procedures, I have seen districts do this, and I like this practice, where you re-adopt the board operating procedures. Typically, it's a part of what new board members go through, maybe in their local orientation anyway. So maybe not at the very first meeting when a new member is here, maybe the next one, so they would have had a chance to do the local orientation. But that way, everyone has raised their hand and said, we agree that these are the procedures to which we're going to operate.
I think that's excellent.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
I just, now, and if you have a string of years where you have a new, you maybe have a new trustee and in consecutive years, that does mean you're re-adopting them. But I just think that's the best practice, that everyone has raised their hand and said, yep, this is how we agree to do business.
I think and I'm speaking as a new trustee, one of the best things that happened to me is at the very, very beginning with my local training with John. And one of the first things we did was we went through the local and the legal.
Yeah.
And that helped out, because I'm like, make sure I don't do anything wrong
Right.
up there, illegal, anything, but it was right there. And I think that the whole team should be a part of going back adopting, just like you said.
Yep.
And since I'm talking, I think that this training should be at the beginning and not the end.
Team of 8.
Totally
Team of
agree.
8.
We discussed that.
Yeah, that sounds like a great idea. No, that's, yeah. And we can certainly do that. I mean, well, I say, whoever y'all choose to do the team, yeah, it's your decision. But yeah, that, I do see that happen sometimes too, where if you can do that kind of on the front end, especially when there's a new member, come on board. Yeah. Any other ideas about how you adopt or regularly review the procedures? All right. So, final reflections. What's one takeaway from tonight's session? What's one thing that either something new you learned or something that you want to explore further or something that just really confirmed something you already believed to be true? I call these kind of my ahas sometimes. What's an aha that you want to share from tonight's or this afternoon's session?
I'll say this is one of my favorite trainings. I love Team of 8 training. And I think I love the last question that that we just discussed, like how we as a board want to adopt and regularly review the procedures. And I love the quiz too, because I picked up nuggets, from that. And although we've read this, possibly not looked at it in a while, so that allows us to kind of go through and look at it and brush up on some things. So, and just being able to review this with my partners, my other board members, I think this was a great exercise. Also, there was one other thing, but I'll let someone else go.
All right. Thank you.
I think for me, it's going to be the advocacy for public education in our district and how important that is to not only for our students, but for our community as well. So
Yep.
that's a big takeaway for me
Great.
this evening.
Great. Thank you. Appreciate it. Who else would like to share?
I would like to thank you, Robbie. I really like how you did the session today, where you had us to kind of dig into some of the information. I wish we were able to do all of them like that.
Right. Right.
Maybe at a future training, we could pick and choose, because I think it sticks
Right.
in your brain a little bit better, and I like that technique.
Okay. Thank you. Appreciate it.
It's interactive, I think,
Yeah.
one is why.
I like
Yeah.
So this is my 4th meeting today. So
Man.
they're not all like this.
Well,
No, I agree with Wanda. I like the way you changed it up. Everybody was interactive. We went around. I just think that makes it more engaging, and it just, we touched on a lot of the same stuff, but it got us thinking on some new stuff and stuff. So I think that was, I like that.
Okay. Thanks for sharing.
And also thank you again for coming and giving
Putting it
us
on.
the.
Yeah.
team
Yeah.
meeting.
I'm happy to do that. Anybody else that hasn't shared yet that want to share your one takeaway?
My takeaway is great information, but it slowed us down. When we come in here, we're coming from various different things. We go in, we have a chance to gobble down some dinner maybe or whatever, but we actually got to sit down and hear each other's views. Everybody in here is different.
Yeah.
And, we each represent one person, ourselves and the community
Right.
that we live in. But my takeaway is the unity of just sitting here, not rushing off or signing
Right.
documents or whatever, and hearing it. We leave, we might not always agree on the same thing, but at least we can sit here and we can hear about each other's children. This we need, but we also need that development of coming together as a
Exactly.
board.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, thank you. Thanks. I appreciate your participation.
And I second that.
All right. All right. Anything else you want to share, Dr. Moore?
Herbert?
Oh, that's right. Thank you. Yes, Trustee Sanchez.
Yeah, so to me, it's just the importance of effective communication, listening to other people and, having the ability to listen to dissenting voices. That's very important, not only within the board, but also within the community. So that's what I have to say about that.
Thank you. Thank you.
I'll add, I also enjoyed the fact that it's not as fast-paced as a normal board meeting. And I think as we look through things, times change. And we need to constantly be evaluating our processes and procedures to change with the times. And while each person here, each board member, represents themselves and their community, as a group, we represent everybody.
Yeah, that's right.
And as a group, it's our job to make sure we're a fair representative of the people who think the way we do and the people who don't think the way we do. I often comment to people, I got to be everybody's superintendent, whether I agree with them or not. And so updating and staying up with our procedures and keeping up with our goals is really, really important to fulfill that goal. And I believe today helps us do that.
Great. Awesome. Awesome. Any other questions before we wrap up? All right. Well, I'm going to take the last word, and I want to end the way I began, and that's with the word of gratitude. I'll thank you again for being here. You committed to being here, and for that I'm grateful. But on top of that, you were here, and you all 8 of you, were actively engaged. And you engaged with me as the facilitator, but you engaged with each other. And selfishly for me as a facilitator, I mean, I haven't been in 4 meetings today. This is just my 2nd meeting today. But I want to see that engagement. We've all been through those, I call them the death by PowerPoint trainings, where it's, I've got 150 PowerPoint slides to read to you over the next 3 hours. Nobody wants to do that. And so, but that's only possible if you commit to engaging. So you were all engaged in that tonight. So thank you again. Thanks for what you do for your district and the kids and the staff and the community here. And I appreciate the opportunity to be out here. So that concludes my portion of the agenda, Madam President.
Well, thank you. I also want to thank Miss Elizabeth for
Yes.
always getting us together and making sure that we are where we're supposed to be, when we're supposed to do it. And so thank you all for coming. So thank you, Dr. McGowan. There being no other business before the board at this time, the meeting is adjourned. It is 5:39 p.m. Gotcha. Sometime.
This is the code.